to go, GNCC Racing!
Hello and welcome to GNCC on NBC Sports. From Beckley, West Virginia, the Yamaha Mountaineer GNCC Round 12 of the AMSOIL Grand National Cross Country Championship. I'm Rodney Tomlin as we look at a beautiful sunshiny day here in southern West Virginia and a beautiful day a couple of weeks ago at the Mason-Dixon GNCC for round number 11. It was a little more overcast, but more than anything, dusty, dusty, dusty. That was the name of the game, and the war of attrition for both man and machine as Ricky Russell grabbed the hole shot, but off to the early lead at the Mason-Dixon GNCC was the number one of Caleb Russell, close in tow there. Look at that, the 127 of Jordan Ashburn. As the day wore on, Caleb Russell found himself, well, like everyone else did, with dusty conditions. And it wasn't the dust in the air that was so much the problem as the dust along the sides of the track, the dust berms, and these riders kept sucking it up. Riders like DeLong, Baylor boys, Jordan Ashburn, Caleb Russell, Ben Kelly, all in with issues and problems and troubles. Even bad Thad Duvall having some issues. Well, not so much of an issue. They changed his before issues started arising, and, well, I'll tell you what, it paid huge dividends as he led both laps 5 and 6 and took it all the way home to the checker flag in his 4th win of 2019.
Yeah, you know, Tanner did an awesome job putting the fender filter on, and I didn't really even want to stop because I didn't feel like my bike was really spinning and sputtering that bad, but just I knew I had a comfortable lead and just, had it popped off, ready to go, and the boys put it on and got a splash of gas and then just decided to cruise the last lap. It was easy to make a big mistake out there, so just cruised in the last lap, played it safe, and brought it home in front of my hometown fans here.
Not playing it so safe over the last couple of weeks as Duvall took the win at the Mason-Dixon GNCC, but will not be in the roster as far as the Yamaha Mountaineer GNCC is concerned. We are looking at 3 hours of racing today on a 10.5-mile race course. We got some dry woods and some single track. The beauty of it is not a lot of open field sections, so dust should not be a huge issue today as the green flag waves for our XC1 Pro class. They are off and rolling, and look at this. Jordan Ashburn getting a great jump off the line into that first turn, and as we head into the second turn across the hole shot stripe, Jordan Ashburn will get the All Balls Hole Shot Award, but look at that, big Stu Baylor in that number 2 spot. Right behind him, the number 1 of Caleb Russell, and behind him, looks like Ben Kelly close in tow as we kick things off here at the Summit Bechtel, and of course this Mountaineer GNCC. Tough break for last week's Hole Shot Award winner Ricky Russell as he opens up in 11th place position down to the XC250 Pro class, and looks like Big Sam Evans out of St. Albans, West Virginia, going head-to-head with the 282 of Mike Witkowski. Evans will get the hole shot and pick himself up an extra $100 in the Hot Cams Hole Shot Award and the early lead in the XC250 Pro class. Down to the FMF XC3 125 Pro-Am class. A great jump off the line by the 318 Lojax Yamaha ride of Chase Colville, and he will grab the hole shot, pick himself up the Wiseco Hole Shot Award with the number 1 of Jesse Ansley. Close in tow as well, looking to seal the deal on the championship in that class. He's hoping for it, but Colville hoping for a win. Look at this. Stu Baylor early on here on lap number 1 takes over the lead. It is Caleb Russell in second, Ben Kelly in third. There is Trevor Bollinger in the number 4 spot. Lane Michael, West Virginia's own, in fifth. 127 and 6. That's Jordan Ashburn. Ashburn getting off to a pretty decent start a couple of weeks ago. We'll see if he can make his way through this mountainous terrain. He seems to adapt well to these types of conditions. Back out front, Stu Baylor still out front, starting to open up a little bit of a lead now as we do find one of our open field sections that we don't have a lot of here at Summit Bechtel Reserve here this weekend. About 10 seconds back, we see Caleb Russell. Then there is the 530 of Ben Kelly. A great start for the young rider who just recently wrapped up the XC250 Pro class. Can he make the grade today, hold on to a podium position, or even make bigger history? Stick around. We continue after this.
GNCC on the NBC Sports Network is brought to you by AMSOIL, the first in synthetics. Specialized Turbo e-bikes. It's you, only faster. And by Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Get ready.
And welcome back to GNCC on the NBC Sports Network from Beckley, West Virginia, in the Summit Bechtel Reserve for this Yamaha Mountaineer GNCC. And there is Thad Duval, won the Mason-Dixon, but again, a midweek practice crash and knee injury has taken him out of the race today as we pick the action back up on the track. And Stu Baylor, who got out front early, is muscling his way a little further ahead as he sees still about a 10-second gap over the rest of the field, including the number 1 of Caleb Russell and the 530 of Ben Kelly. Those two still right there together in second and third place position, but beginning to open up a little bit of a lead over the fourth place ride of the 739, Trevor Bollinger. And good to see him back up to speed. Hopefully he's got the endurance. I know a lot of folks are expecting and hoping the same thing out of this rider, Stu Baylor, who's up front early on in this one. Oftentimes we see him push from the back to the front. He's now got to set the pace up front the entire race to stay ahead of guys like that. The number 1 of Caleb Russell and this newcomer, the 530 of Ben Kelly. Unfortunate for him, a couple of weeks ago had his worst race result in his XC1 Pro Racing debut, but I don't think that that's going to be any indication of what we're expecting to see here today, the rest of the season, or in the future. There's Jordan Ashburn now hot on the rear wheel of Trevor Bollinger. Ashburn back in the number 5 spot. And look at this battle going on for 6th place right now. Josh Toth and Andrew DeLong on the Phoenix Racing Honda. There is the 314 of Grant Baylor as well, rounding out the top 8. So a 3-way battle going on and shaping up there, it looks like. But as we look a little further down the trail, this battle for the 4th place position and 5th place spot really starting to intensify with Jordan Ashburn and the 739 of Trevor Bollinger. And look, not far behind now, still in that 6th place position, the 206, and now the 314 of Grant Baylor up from 8th to a 7th place position. So we've seen a few changes over the last couple of miles. Not a lot of change up front, though, as Stu Baylor continues to nail down the lead in this one and still enjoying about a 10. That might have opened up a little bit to about a 12 to 14-second gap between first and second. It looks like maybe now the champ of Caleb Russell, a little bit of breathing room as some distance starting to open up between he and the 530 of Ben Kelly. But we know here in the world of GNCC racing, that's not a whole lot of time. These guys got to get out of sight of each other. And look at that line that Stu Baylor just took. And those are the kind of lines that, well, you can see help make up time. Those kind of lines can help you also lose time if they don't pay the dividends you're hoping for. But that one paid off. You see Russell goes out wide and a little bit further down the trail. So does the 530 of Ben Kelly, but it was Baylor that was muscling his way through. That's hard on both man and machine. Can it withstand the entire 3 hours here in the mountains of West Virginia? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Beautiful terrain here at the Summit Bechtel Reserve as these riders are basically carving brand new lines in these mountains as far as racing is concerned. A little bit of trail riding going on here with the Boy Scouts of America and Girl Scouts. I guess it's the Scouts of America now, but regardless, a great facility and a brand new racetrack. A lot of virgin terrain that we're seeing out there and a lot of single track style that a lot of these front runners in the XC1 Pro class really like a lot. And looks like we might have a little bit of a change now as we have got Ben Kelly into the number 2 spot. He's gotten around the number 1 of Caleb Russell. Not real sure what happened there, but he's around. And now Russell trying to make up ground on the 530 machine. A little bit of a gap opening up. And wow, what a big day for the rookie pro in the 530 of Ben Kelly. Through some of that new single trail stuff we were talking about as Stu Baylor muscling his way through here. You can't hardly see bikes have even been through here. Each and every rider choosing a different line through, some bulldogging their way through, some trying to be a little more finesseful as we saw Kelly there. And this might be a hybrid mix for the number 1 of Caleb Russell as he's bulldogging and trying to be finesseful all at the same time, bouncing off the trees out there. There's the 739 of Trevor Bollinger still in 4th. There's your 5th place ride. The 314 as he's moved up from 8th to 7th, now up to a 5th place position. At least he was before that little incident. As we said, some of those times those kind of lines pay big dividends. Sometimes they will cost you, and we see there it cost little brother Grant some seconds and possibly a position on the racetrack. Stu Baylor still out front, and look at this, friends. The 530 of Ben Kelly, in only his second pro race, has moved in not only into second place, but within seconds now of the number 514, your leader of Stu Baylor, and he can see every move that 514 is making, and this could become a very tight race as we wind on down. Looks like Stu may have found a little bit of breathing room out there, getting some lap traffic between himself and the second place position, but something tells me that Ben Kelly is not going to wane so easily, and he is still going to be a force to be reckoned with for Stu Baylor. Back in the number 3 spot, still looking for the number 1 machine. There is Kelly still on the 530 machine, so you can see that the gap may be opening up a little bit more between first and second place, back to about a 30-second gap. We've seen that a couple of times on a couple of moments in a couple of sections of the race course, but I think this one is tightening back up, though it looks like the number 1 of Caleb Russell may be looking at about a 20 or so second gap between himself and the second place position also. And not only that, but he also may be getting company very early, as a lot of these riders are pushing hard. And look at this. Now into the 4th place position, the 314 of Grant Baylor's gotten around Trevor Bollinger, so he's now into the number 4 spot, challenging for 3rd place away from Caleb Russell. So big changes taking place as we roll through the midway point of this Yamaha Mountaineer GNCC, and there is still Caleb Russell in that number 3 position, and there you see the lap traffic. That's going to separate a lot of these riders. Down goes the 5th place ride, the 739 of Trevor Bollinger. Wait a minute, he got back up to 4th place. He got back around. Nope, that is not the 314. That is the 206 of Josh Toth. So Grant Baylor is still in 4th. That put Bollinger in 5th. Now into 5th is the 206 of Josh Toth, as he is making up some ground here as the race wears on. I know he started out in about 7th, 8th place position there on that first lap. He's been running 7th and 6th back and forth, but now up to a top 5 solid position, as still a big battle about to wage up front, as the 530 of Kelly is closing that gap back up on the 514 of Stu Baylor. There's the number 1 of Caleb Russell, and there is that 4th place rider, the 314 of Grant Baylor. So he has been solid since he's gotten around Bollinger for that 4th place position. And that battle back there now for Josh Toth, as he's moved into the number 5 position, is going to get equally as exciting, I believe. There is the 739 back. He drops, I believe that would put him in 6th place now. Bollinger, tough break for him. You see him doing some dog paddling out there. I'm sure endurance might be the key here, because he's been off the bike for a while over the summer break, but we'll see if he can hang on to it. Will Stu Baylor be able to hang on to it? Stick around to find out. Welcome back to GNCC on NBC Sports, the Yamaha Mountaineer GNCC from Beckley, West Virginia. Rodney Tomlin along with you, and Caleb Russell out of this one. Clipped a tree, as you can see, re-injuring his shoulder from a midweek practice crash he had that wasn't publicized, but nonetheless he's out. But still, the championship belonging to him as we pick back up with our leaders here. Stu Baylor still in that number 1 position, and Ben Kelly back in the number 2 spot. But look at this, he is right there. And if any mistakes be made by Stu Baylor, then we know that the 530 is going to capitalize very quickly. And look at that, those kind of rides, he does not go around the log, he goes over the log. And as we said, they pay huge dividends, but they can be costly. Look at the difference in the riding style of Ben Kelly and Stu Baylor. You can see that Baylor's made up a whole lot of time. Grant Baylor doing the same thing, and you know he is bulldogging things as well, as he rides a whole lot like big brother Stu there. So he's made up a whole lot of time up into that number 3 spot. He was back in 8th place early on lap number 1, and has slowly worked his way up into position. As always, the Baylor boys seem to do. Normally they're coming from the back to the front like Grant is today, but today Stu started out front. The big question is, will he be able to hang on to that one, pick up another win here in 2019? As we check in with Josh Toth, who seems to really be picking up the pace here. He gets a position or two there due to some issues there with Caleb Russell, so he'll move up a spot, and that should put him a little closer to the top 5 and maybe even working on a podium position, as he really seems to be picking up the pace late in the race today. Stu Baylor continues to lead here at the Mountaineer GNCC. A little further back now is the 530 of Ben Kelly, so that gap opening back up. But again, I think a lot of it has to do with lap traffic, and whenever Stu doesn't see him in behind him, he's going to take those alternate lines whenever possible. There's some of that dust starting to kick up a little heavier here later in the race than we saw earlier in the race, but still not much of an issue as Kelly has closed that gap up a little bit more, so we're within 10 seconds here in the closing moments of this Yamaha Mountaineer GNCC. More lap traffic for Stu Baylor, and I don't know if that was steam or smoke we seen puffing out of that bike. I believe that was a puff of smoke that we saw coming out of that bike, and that could spell some problems, and that could be a reason as to why we see Ben Kelly closing that gap up so quickly on the 514 machine. Maybe he's losing power out there, but again, the terrain, it's late in the race. I'm sure he's beginning to tire. There's a lot of different variables that are going to come into play here in the closing moments, but man, excitement starting to really thicken in the air as this race continues and we near the completion. Grant Baylor solidly in that number 3 spot. He's about a minute and a half behind the second and first place battle, and got about a minute lead over the 4th place position. As we see again, Stu Baylor utilizing a little bit further inside line, going through that ditch and going a little bit further down that time, but a little closer in was Ben Kelly, and looks like that Grant Baylor is also trying to play it safe. Will Stu Baylor be able to play it safe and take the win today? Will Ben Kelly be able to make the pass and make history? Stick around. Find out more after this.
GNCC on the NBC Sports Network is brought to you by AMSOIL, the first in synthetics. Specialized turbo e-bikes. It's you, only faster. And by Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Get ready.
Welcome back to GNCC on NBC Sports, and big changes taking place as Ben Kelly has taken over the lead. Reports have it that Stu Baylor is having some sort of mechanical issue not far from the finish line himself, and, well, a new leader has prevailed. That moves the number 314 Grant Baylor into the number 2 spot now, as he too will get around the 514 machine, and that 4th place ride that we saw Josh Toth work so hard to get into, well, now it pays another dividend, and he picks up a 3rd place position here, moving toward the finish line. And right at the finish line now, making history in GNCC, it is Ben Kelly taking the win in only his 2nd GNCC race. Folks, earlier this year, just 2 races ago, he was an XC2 250 Pro Class racer. He is now an XC1 Pro Class rookie, and now an XC1 Pro Class winner.
Yeah, overall it was a good race. I got a good start, and that's all that really mattered. I was able to just stay up there with Caleb the first half of the race, and once I got by, I put in a charge and caught Stu, and yeah, I just tried to hang his wheel the whole time, and yeah, I got real close coming into that last lap, and just tried to stick with him the whole time, and it was going to be hard to pass him. I tried a few different lines and tried getting close here and there, and then close to the end of that bike only on a downhill, he stalled it, and I was able to squeak by when he was trying to refire the bike. So got a little gift there, but yeah, I worked hard, and I'm just stoked to get my first overall win.
Well, about every decade or so, a new rider comes in and shakes things up in the GNCC. Will Ben Kelly be that rider that is about to do that? From the looks of things, he very well could be taking the win here today. In that number 2 spot, we see Grant Baylor making his way in, and what a rough and rugged day. Fought and battled, scratched, and scraped his way into that number 2 spot here in the mountains of West Virginia.
Yeah, and seems like every time I had a good race going this year, just something would happen out of our hands and I wouldn't finish the race. But now you see when I finish the race, I'm on the box and where I belong. It's been a while since I've been up here, and it feels great. I just had a pretty good day. I had a mid-pack start there and took me a couple laps to get going, but there in the middle of the race, I put in a really good lap and was able to catch up to those guys and land there on the box.
Well, that's your second KTM on the podium, and here comes your third KTM, the 206 of Josh Toth, who also batted his way from the back of the pack today, rounding out the podium. And, wow, one of the best and strongest finishes we've seen out of Toth here in 2019.
Absolutely. I had high expectations for myself coming into this weekend. Working with WP and getting my suspension sorted, and coming to this round, I knew it was like home for me and Ben. So I'm stoked to be up on the box with him and Ben and I, and also Grant. So we got the whole junior trophy team up there sweeping it.
Well, pretty interesting. The whole junior trophy team for the ISDE on the podium as we take a look at our AMSOIL recap in this one, and it was Jordan Ashburn getting the early lead in the whole shot, if you will, but the 514 of Stu Baylor muscling his way to the front of the pack and pretty much dominating, it seemed, the entire day up until the last lap or so. Of course, Caleb Russell getting into this one today, all he basically had to do was start the race and he would secure his 7th GNCC title. He did that late in the race, got himself a DNF, but that opened the way for a lot of other riders to move up in ranks, including the 530 of Ben Kelly, who moved into second, and then eventually around the 514 of Stu Baylor, and another rider that was able to capitalize on the misfortunes of the champ going out was Josh Toth, who worked so hard to move into that 4th place position, and of course once after that moving into the 3rd place spot and taking over the final podium position. And a really wild and crazy day here in the southern mountains of West Virginia. And I'll tell you another thing, a beautiful race facility. Our first time here, and hopefully be seeing a lot more great battles at this Summit Bechtel Reserve, as this facility certainly holds a lot of treasures. It's wild, it's wonderful, it's West Virginia, and it's GNCC Racing as Ben Kelly does it, makes history here in the Grand National Cross Country Championship in only his 2nd starting as an XC1 Pro Class racer. Caleb Russell wraps up his 7th championship with that start today. And with that, one more round of racing to go. What will happen at the Ironman? We'll find out in a couple of weeks. Until then, I'm Rodney Tomlin. Have a great day, everybody.